How we choose to make our mark on the world is what makes some of us heroes and others of us villains. Take a look back at American history and you'll find plenty of lone wolf assassins who thought they would be celebrated, lionized, but were instead disparaged. Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh, United Healthcare CEO shooter Luigi Mangione, although he is still being lionized in a lot of corners, are just two examples of violence as perceived somehow acceptable political alternative to, then it all dates back to a guy who wanted to be a famous actor, but is instead known as America's most infamous assassin. That man was John Wilkes Booth. He worked in the theater and assassinated Abraham Lincoln in a theater. And now he's back in the theater, but this time as the subject of a brand new play that recently made its world premiere.
Welcome to an evening with John Wilkes Booth.
John Wilkes Booth, one night only, is on stage in Booth's hometown of Baltimore, from now until the end of the month. And the man behind the play is Matthew Weiner. If you haven't heard his name, you for sure have heard his words. He's 9-time Emmy Award winner and creator of one of the greatest television shows of all time.
That's the way it works. There are no credits on commercials.
You got the Clio.
It's your job. I give you money, you give me ideas.
And you never say thank you.
That's what the money is for. You're young. You will get your recognition. And honestly, it is absolutely ridiculous to be 2 years into your career and counting your ideas. Everything to you is an opportunity. And you should be thanking me every morning when you wake up, along with Jesus, for giving you another day.
That's an iconic scene. Matthew Weiner joins me now. I gotta tell you, even as I watch that show is so good.
Thank you.
It is like 19 years, actually 18. July 19th marks 18 years since Mad Men debuted. People still watch this thing, quote this thing.
I don't know what to tell you.
Discuss this thing.
It was, I mean, it's not your goal. Some of it is the technological universe that we're in, where things are available. And some of it, I think, is that it kind of has a timelessness to it, which we tried. Even though it's a period piece, it's just got, it's you know, it's 92 hours without a murder. So it's kind of on a human scale, and I think that people identify with that.
And the actors, my God.
Oh, I mean,
the
that was
casting
amazing.
Was
that was amazing.
All right, congrats on the play. How did you pick John Wilkes Booth as somebody to write an entire play about? This man who has gone down in infamy in history.
Well, it's very interesting that you were talking about Luigi Mangione, who is also a 26-year-old from Baltimore, and that you were talking about Timothy McVeigh, who, when he was arrested, was wearing a T-shirt with John Wilkes Booth on it.
Was he?
Yes.
I'd forgotten that
Yes.
detail.
He is the hero of these people, but that's not really what the Proud Boys, the disenchanted white racist movement. And what really got me into it, though, is that I found out that he was so narcissistic because I'd read that he was disgruntled about the amount of money being offered for his reward.
He was insulted
and I was like,
because he thought the reward money
Yes.
for information leading to his arrest.
Yes.
He went on the run for several days after
10 days.
10 days. And when he went down south and thought he would be
was in
hailed
Maryland.
as a hero.
He was in Maryland, and he had an escape route because they had had a kidnapping plot before that, but he thought the war would turn around. He thought people would rally behind him. And nobody was happy about Abraham Lincoln being killed. This war had gone on, was supposed to go on for 3 months, had gone on for 4 years. And I think also the federal government had proved, the Union had proved that it was dangerous to harbor him. So, but he's so defiant till the end, and it becomes obvious that he actually has this, well, you know, it's funny because he idolizes John Brown, who is the exact opposite philosophy. John Brown, who was the, you know, armed the slaves at Harper's Ferry, because he wants to be famous.
Yeah.
So there's really this thing between his brother, who's a famous actor, his father, who's a very famous actor, being thrown into poverty at a young age. They were rich and then they weren't, and I think that they felt that someone had taken their whiteness,
Someone
believe it
had
or not.
wronged them.
Someone had wronged them, exactly. So, and looking at that period, it is a technological change in the 1840s, very similar to now. And when the Know-Nothings came along, who sound a lot like this part of America, their biggest enemies were immigrants, the Irish at that time, liberals, who the Communist Manifesto was written in 1848, and women. And then comes abolition.
You say you've long been fascinated about the question of why people do terrible things. And I'm curious, as you've investigated and sort of grappled with that, are they terrible people or are they just normal people who end up doing terrible things?
When you write about a character, you try and see them as a human being. Everybody has a reason for what they do. There's no doubt he's terrible, but I was interested in the reason. And I was also interested in the fact that I knew that we were living in the shadow of what he did.
How so?
I think that the message of the play to some degree is for people, everything in the play sounds contemporary. Every single argument about North and South, rich and poor, white and black, every single aspect is going on right now in this country.
Rural, urban for us.
Rural, urban, of course, and Maryland is the symbol of that, believe me. So you sort of, Baltimore in particular, so you sort of are saying, like, are we living, I mean, the lines in the play. The Civil War is not really over.
In many ways, past is prologue.
Exactly, exactly. So I think it's important for people to know about that. I think it's important for people to see that even though he had this disruptive childhood, he has a brother who's not like him, who was raised in the same family. So, like, you can't really use the trauma story, but some of it's his character. And the other thing is that he really wanted to be seen. And I think he felt displaced. And I'm not making any excuses for him because violence is not what most of us pick.
No.
But it is a big part of American culture.
It's a big part of the human experience. I think all of us
True.
want to be seen. And the play is really fascinating because it really delves into what happens when you feel like you're not. The play is John Wilkes Booth, Matthew Weiner. Congratulations.
Thank you. What a
I'm
pleasure.
hoping to see it when that play comes to Broadway. Fingers crossed.
That's the plan.
Okay. Thank you. Congrats.
Great to be
All
here.
right.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.